The moment she shoved him out of his seat, every eye turned away, except one. The CEO at the front of the plane slowly stood up, his face unreadable. What he did next would change the single father's life forever and expose a truth no one expected. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. The little boy curled against his chest was finally breathing evenly, tiny fingers clutching the worn sleeve of his hoodie like it was the only safe thing left in the world. Daniel kept still, afraid that even a breath might wake him. This flight wasn't luxury. It wasn't comfort. It was necessity, a last chance. The seat he was in had cost him almost everything left in his wallet, but it meant getting his son closer to a hospital that might actually help. Then she arrived. Her heels clicked sharply down the aisle, expensive, confident, impatient. She glanced at Daniel's seat, then at the boarding pass in her hand and scoffed. "You're in my seat," she said loudly. Daniel looked up, startled. He checked the numbers again, his hands trembling. I don't think so," he said quietly, trying not to wake his son. "This is 14C. She rolled her eyes. "I don't care. I always sit here, move." Before he could respond, she pushed his shoulder hard enough that his arm jerked. The boy stirred, whimpering softly. Daniel's heart slammed. He pulled his son closer, shielding him. Around them, people watched and did nothing. Some pretended not to see. Others looked annoyed, as if the presence of a tired single dad and a sick child was an inconvenience. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "Please, my son isn't well. We just need this flight." She laughed under her breath. "Not my problem." That was when the cabin went quiet, not because of her voice, but because someone else stood up. From the first-class section, a tall man in a tailored suit rose slowly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush, but every movement carried weight. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "step away from them." She froze, confused, then irritated. "And who are you?" she snapped. The man met her eyes. "I'm the CEO of this airline." A ripple of shock moved through the plane. The woman's face drained of color. The CEO turned to Daniel and gently placed a hand on the seat back. "Sir," he said softly, "you and your son will not be moving." He then looked back at the woman. "You, however, will." Flight attendants rushed forward. The woman tried to protest, but the CEO raised a single hand. "Bullying a father and child ends today." Applause broke out. Hesitant at first, then strong. Daniel stared, stunned, tears burning his eyes. He hadn't asked for help. He hadn't expected anyone to care. Yet here it was, unexpected, powerful, real. As the woman was escorted away, the CEO crouched slightly to Daniel's level. "What's your son's name?" he asked. "Eli," Daniel whispered. "He has a heart condition. We're going to see specialists. I lost my wife last year. It's just us." The CEO nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "You're doing a good job," he said. Simple words, but they shattered the wall Daniel had built around his pain. He turned his face away, ashamed of the tears that fell anyway. The rest of the flight passed differently. Attendants checked on them constantly. Someone brought warm milk for Eli. Another passenger offered toys. Kindness began spreading, one small act at a time, as if people were remembering how to be human again. When the plane landed, Daniel thought that was the end of it. A moment of justice. A brief kindness. Life would go back to being hard. He was wrong. At the gate, the CEO was waiting. "Daniel," he said, holding out a card. "Call this number." "It's not customer service. It's me." Daniel hesitated. "Sir, I don't want—" "This isn't charity," the CEO interrupted gently. "It's opportunity." Weeks later, Daniel sat in a quiet office, Eli playing nearby, healthier already. The CEO explained that he'd started as a single father 2 years ago. Struggling, invisible, judged. He offered Daniel a job in logistics, flexible hours, full medical coverage. Not because of pity, because of character. Daniel accepted, not just for himself but for his son. The day he walked into work wearing a badge instead of worn-out clothes, he remembered the shove, the silence of the crowd, and the moment one person stood up. He understood then that dignity doesn't come from money or status. It comes from how you treat those who have nothing left to give. And sometimes, the smallest seat on a crowded plane is exactly where a life begins to change.